graders, Miss Cross is here with you for another day of math as we continue on our learning target of I can use place value to round whole numbers to any place using tools like number lines or anchor charts. We're going to begin today with another estimation 180. I left the directions off this time because hopefully by now you have got it down, but we will start by taking estimates that are way too big, and then estimates that are way too small, and then estimates that could really be correct. And I think I forgot to mention this, but this is a really good opportunity to practice saying some of those really big numbers when you do the estimates that are too big. And then later in the year when we start learning about fractions and decimals, those are some good options for your too low estimates. So go ahead and pause the video, click over to estimation 180, and then come back for today's lesson. Okay, friends, I'm going to model for you a few more rounding examples, and then you are going to practice on a few examples of your own. So today we have Mr. Jet, who is a pilot. This summer he flew 68,435 miles. How can I use a number line to round this number to the nearest 100, 1,000, and 10,000? Okay, so he is a pilot. He flew 68,435 miles, and we need to use a number line to round this number to the nearest 100, 1,000, and 10,000. Okay, let's flip over to my journal so you can see how we do this. I have already written the number here on the paper, and I've got my three number lines. So this is going to be rounding to the nearest 100, this is going to be to the nearest 1,000, and this is going to be to the nearest 10,000. I've already set up each number line into 10 sections, divided them up into 10 sections, but I want to kind of talk through figuring out which benchmark numbers I'm going to put at the beginning and end of every number line, because that is something you're going to need to do depending on what place you're rounding to, okay? So for the first one, we're rounding to the nearest hundreds. So these benchmarks are going to be the hundreds that this number is in between. So I'm going to start my number line with this 100. Okay, so I'm going to make this point 68,400. Okay, now if I assume that this number line is covering 100 units, when I go up 100 from this, I would be at 68,500. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, this number is somewhere in between these two hundreds. So now let's think about how the number line will be partitioned. So if this is 100 units, the very middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be 68,450. Now remember, if this number line is divided up into 100 units like this, each of these is going to be 10, okay? So 68,410, 68,420, 68,430, 68,440, 68,450, 68,460, on and up, 70, 80, 90, and then we're at our next 100, which is 68,500. So now I've got to think about where this number would fall on this number line. So 68,435. So that's going to be between 68,430, 10, 20, 30, which is right here, and 68,440, which is right there. And this is right in the middle, okay? Now, if we were rounding to the nearest 10, we would have to think about that 5, and we haven't actually talked about that yet. But luckily, we're rounding to the nearest 100, so we're not going to worry about that right now. So I need to find out if this is closer to this 100 or this 100. Now, hopefully, you are using this visual tool of the number line to help you see which 100 it is closer to. So if I'm going down to this 100, I have to go 1, 2, 3 hops. If I go up to this 100, I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hops, which would be 60 places. This 3 was 30. So it is a shorter distance to go down to this 100. So if I round the amount of miles he flew to the nearest 100, it is 68,400. That is the 100 that this number is closest to. Okay? Now we're going to think about thousands. Okay? So I've got to think about which thousands this number is in between. So I'm going to start with the 1,000 we have, which would be 68,000. And if I go up 1,000, I would be at 69,000. So now that I'm jumping 100 units on this number line, each of these is worth, I'm sorry, did I say that right? 1,000 units. Each of these sections is 100, okay? So in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we would have 68,500. Okay, so if I'm thinking about this number line that covers 1,000 units, each space on my number line is 100. So 68,100, 68,200, 68,300, 68,400, 68,500, 68,600, 68,700, 68,800, 68,900, and then we reach our next 1,000, which is 69,000. So now we've got to figure out where this number goes on this number line. So I'm thinking about which hundreds is this number between, because that's where I'm going to place it on my number line. So I see 435. So I know it's going to be between 400, 1, 2, 3, 4, which would be here, 68,400, and 68,500, which I've already labeled. So I am going to put it just a little bit to the left of center because 35 is a little less than halfway between those two hundreds. So now I'm going to do my jumps and see which 1,000 I'm closest to. So from here I go 1, 2, 3, 400 spaces away. This way I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 spaces away. So again, this one's a little harder to see, but you should still see that this point on the number line is closer to the lower 1,000, so it rounds down to 68,000. Okay, so this number is closer to 68,000 than 69,000. Okay, now we are going to think about the 10,000s. So what two 10,000s is this number in between? So I'm going to start with 60,000. Now I'm going to assume I have to go up 10,000 spaces. So this would take us to 70,000. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in the middle we would have 65,000. And each spot on the number line would be a jump of 1,000 units. So 61,000, 62,000, 63,000, 64,000, 65,000, 66,000, 67,000, 68,000, 69,000, and 70,000. Okay, so where does this number go? So now I've got to think about which 1,000 it's between because these are partitioned by thousands. So 68,000 and 69,000, excuse me, are the 2,000s we are between. So this is 68,000. This is 69,000. Okay, so 68,435 is going to be just almost in between those, almost in the middle. Okay, now I should see how close this is to this 10,000 and how far it is from that one. But let's do our jumps just to see. We have about 1,000 units going that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8,000 going that way. So we can now see how this would round up to the next 10,000. So 68,435 is closer to 70,000 than it is to 60,000. Okay, so you can use this as a reference as you do your practice problems today, and your teacher will be available to help you as well. They are right here on the slide. So you can copy this number down into your journal, okay? The number you're going to be using is 27,392. And you're going to do the exact same thing I just did. You're going to draw 3 different number lines, and you are going to round that number to the nearest 100, the nearest 1,000, and the nearest 10,000. And if you need to go back and look at my journal to see how I did those number lines, you can. So your teacher could model this with you. You could be practicing it on your own. Just listen for instructions from your teacher on how this is going to work in your class, okay? And tomorrow, we will work on some more rounding, and we're going to talk a little bit about that thing I mentioned with 5s earlier that we haven't really talked about yet. So, good luck in math. Please ask us if you have questions with boys and girls. I will see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.